the biggest fear that I have in terms of having a child with autism is that I'm really concerned about what's going to happen in the future when he becomes an adult. Is he going to be a fully functioning part of society? Are people going to be willing to accept him for who he is? That's my biggest concern.
Future concerns, primarily level of independence, getting to be a big one now that she's 10 years old.
Harder work, I think.
Try not to go there too much.
All right.
Will she be living with me or her dad the rest of her life? Or will she be able to function in a group home setting?
I think my biggest fear for my son is not right now. I think right now we're fine. I worry more about when he grows up and when my husband and I are not able to take care of him anymore. What's going to happen to him? That's what keeps me up at night. I worry that his sister may or may not be able to take care of him, but if she can't, who will take care of him?
The way that I balance my life and take time for myself in order to care for my son is I try to go to yoga once a week. I don't always get to go once a week, and I try to beat myself up because I found myself doing that initially when I said this is what I'm going to do for myself. But I find that I can find pockets of time throughout the day, even taking moments to breathe when someone might, tick me off at work, or which happens to all of us, or even if I'm thinking about what I need to do for my son, which is a constant. Like, you just have to take time throughout the day and breathe and say it's okay and reset.
We've been known to call one another
Yes, yeah, right.
at the end of an eruption,
Right,
when all is calm. You're
Right.
not going to believe what I just did.
yeah, yeah.
Having that when you call somebody and you know that
Right.
with this one, she's going to make you laugh about it,
Right.
and she's going to make you realize that, well, you know what, I did that 2 weeks ago.
Right.
Or I said the
right.
same thing, and my
Exactly.
kids looked at me with their eyes so huge.
Right.
I went, I don't know what I just said.
Right.
Um,
It's so important to know that,
Yeah.
you're not the only one, and I think that we're all
no.
doing the same thing.
no. And when I call her to confess about something, I know she's not going to judge me.
Yeah, right.
Autism has basically created a non-existent romantic relationship situation for me. Because I'm a single mother, which means I'm not married, you don't already have a built-in person to deal with this whole idea of autism. I don't necessarily have time to date because I work. I'm working, on my master's degree. I have my son. I'm busy making sure that on a daily basis he is getting the little extras that neurotypical children might not need, but he needs on a daily basis to maintain a balance, if you will. So therefore, my take on it is whoever this guy is, he'll come along for me or he won't. And I'm okay with that.
Well, I would say that my husband and I have very different parenting styles. I'm definitely disciplinarian, and he is the coddler. And I think there's a lot of friction because of that, because I want Benny to grow up, and he wants to make sure Benny is happy. But I think it's actually brought us much closer. I think we fought quite a bit before Benny came along, and now we're working much better together as a team.
Well, my extended family, primarily my parents, my grandmother, who is 86 and is wonderful, and my brother, who doesn't live in the area. He lives in Philly, but he's 2.5 hours away. They have been a godsend for me. We live with my parents, which can be challenging, I know, because I'm quite sure there are going to be families here that are watching this video that are married and have a system set up in place, and they're a little built-in family. But in the same token, we're our little built-in family because if I need anything for Aiden, like Aiden is, my son is the family's baby. So if I need to work extra hours, you know, my family is all for that. Now, I'm going to say this. I don't take advantage. I try to go to yoga on my days off, which happen to be a couple of days during the week, so that Aiden is at school and I'm not necessarily depending on my family to watch him. But in the same token, I have to be to work at 6 in the morning. So my grandmother, again, who is 86, helps me by putting my son on the school bus Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday when I have to work. So they've just really been great. I mean, my son loves my brother. And I don't know how I would do this without them. I maintain balance for Aiden, basically by ensuring that I am a combination of being stern but fun at the same time. I know that he has a pretty demanding school schedule. He is in a attentive verbal behavior, VB, ABA, Applied Behavioral Analysis Program in Baltimore County. And I know that they're working him all day long. So when he gets home, I try to make sure that he has a little bit of downtime. We'll go to the pool. I have him in horseback riding. I also have an art therapist that's working with him. So I try to take things that he likes and make them a combination of learning experiences and also fun.
I have very little going on with my son. We used to do 4 to 5 therapy sessions a week. We ran all over the place. My daughter was in waiting rooms constantly. I was miserable. My son was miserable. My daughter was too young to understand, but I was snappy all the time because we always had to be somewhere. So I just stopped. And honestly, I don't think it's made much of a difference. I think since I'm so much happier and he's so much happier, that we're actually much better off. We just don't do that much. I mean, my daughter plays on a few baseball, she plays on baseball, and my son goes to gymnastics class, but we just don't do too much to stress us out.
We're not a real label conscious family. I'm not a label conscious person. And I think as a result, from his perspective towards his sister, he knows she's different. We talk about how things are more challenging for her, or how she has certain things that she's afraid of that he might not be afraid of. But I always turn it around and say, well, tell me something that's been really hard for you to learn, or what might have really gotten you upset that you were yelling at someone, or just to help him kind of realize that everybody has those elements within themselves.
Alex, my daughter, she's about 3.5 years younger than my son, but she is his best friend. I mean, she is his friend. She plays with him, she jokes with him, she takes care of him. When we're home, they are often running around the house together, being silly and then horsing around. And there are so few other kids that he can do that with. And she has many friends, but he does not. And so I really have to say I'm so happy for their relationship. I love watching them. And I've had people tell me that it brings tears to their eyes to see Benny so happy with her. Because really she's the only peer he has that he enjoys so much.
The present school experience for my son has been great. He is now in a private placement after going through due process with DC Public School System. I feel that he is getting what he needs. However, for him particularly, I'd asked for several things that were recommended by his psychologist, and the school system just did not follow through. So we had to go through due process. But now I'm happy to say he is in a great placement, and I feel that he is thriving in that environment.
We as parents end up spending not only just time, but physical and mental energy doing is trying to raise the level of awareness of the average educator. And given the prevalence of this spectrum of disorders, it's not just like it happened yesterday. I mean, 10 years ago, the numbers were already astronomical. And given over time how that has continued to increase, it still astonishes me that 10 years later, I find myself sometimes explaining to people,
what is autism,
what
and
is
why
it?
they're acting this way.
Why is she sitting in the hallway?
I wish I could say that it's all peaches and cream with my son, but the reality is it's not. I mean, he's great. I love him to death. I wouldn't take anything for him. But there are times when I wish that, we could have conversations. And we've had moments where we've had our type of conversation. For example, Aiden will come to me and say, Sesame Place, in the way that he says, Sesame Place? And I'll go, yes, we're going to go to Sesame Place in the summer. And he goes, summer? And I'm like, yes, we're going to Sesame Place in the summer. And then he might say, Matthew or Mafu. That's what he was calling my brother. So it's in there. It's clicking. But it just takes a little bit more. So, I mean, I really wish that we could have conversations, but it's coming. That's why I do the work that I do.
I think one of the major stresses that I have with my daughter, which applies to the present and has pretty much been a stressor from the beginning, she operates at such a high level of anxiety, constantly needing to know what's going to happen, when we're going to do this, when is someone coming, when is someone going, when are we going there. We've gone through phases of really being stressed out about the clouds coming, is it going to storm, is the power going to go off. That level of anxiety creates a lot of stress to be around.
So the advice that I would give to other caregivers with working with the school system is that you have to get educated. You are the best advocate for your child or for your family member or your child's friend or whoever you may be. It is important to note that the people who are working with our children are professionals and they need to be respected. However, it is important for you as this caregiver to take the time to read and to find the balance between what they're telling you and what you know to be true.
I think that it's really important to remember to be a partner in working with the school, not to be somebody who says yes, yes, yes to everything the school says, and also not to be a combatant and say, I believe that you just care about your own self and I don't believe you care about my child. I've seen both kinds of parents, and I don't believe that that's helping anybody, to just say yes to everything or to say no to everything. I think you really have to act as a team member and collaborate. You'll get the respect of the teachers and the staff, and you also get what's right for your child.
What parent with autism does not face financial challenges? Especially in our situation, I work part-time, and so therefore my employer does not cover my son's insurance. So that means there's a lot of out-of-pocket expenses, not to mention because he has a pre-existing condition. Medical insurance companies do not necessarily want to cover occupational therapy, speech therapy, ABA. If you want to get your child what they need, you got to pay the money. But parents are going bankrupt. Thank God I've had family that's, willing to help me. Like if I needed to pay some other bill, and they might give me a quick loan and you can pay it right back. But it's just, it can be overwhelming.
I remember in the beginning I used to keep a spreadsheet of what we paid out of pocket for various things versus whatever happened to be reimbursed by the insurance of the day. And after a few years, the spreadsheet got to be so scary every time I put something in it that I just stopped tracking because I didn't want to know. The battle with insurance companies is just ridiculous. Limits on numbers of OT visits, limits on numbers of speech therapy visits. And then when you get, even if you don't have limitations on numbers of visits, they don't pay the full price. They'll pay maybe up to 80%, but yeah, still at $135 a pop, 20% adds up over time.
I guess the biggest thing to keep in mind is that our kids are just kids, and we don't necessarily have to look for something that's specific to them. We just have to make sure that we provide the support, and a lot of times that support is going to be us, and it's going to take a lot of us to do it. But if we want our children to thrive, that's what we have to do as parents.
I think the really great thing about having a child with autism is that they really are happier with the simpler things in life. They're really happy to go take a walk, or to go biking, or to go for a hike in the woods, and they're not interested in large crowds and doing expensive things. So we do a lot of hiking and we do a lot of outdoor time, and it doesn't cost anything, but I think that's where my son is happiest.